Okay.
Great.
It's just nice to have work up somewhere.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. It's really fun.
Awesome.
So should I get started?
Yeah, let me introduce you. I know
Okay.
some folks already know who you are, but for those who don't, and for those who are just first joining us for the first time, this is Fleisher from a Distance. It's a series of webinars that we created to help you stay engaged with the arts as well as with the Fleisher community during this time of social distancing. So all of them are virtual. They happen twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're free. We just ask a small donation if you're able to support us. And what else? My name is Vita Litvak. I'm the Associate Director of Adult Education here. I moderate the webinars. I'll be moderating tonight's webinar. So there are quite a few of us on the webinar tonight. So if everybody could just stay muted and put your questions in the chat, and I will read them out to Miriam as we go along. So that way we'll have a smooth facilitated webinar. So really excited to be here with our Miriam Singer, our teaching artist, an amazing printmaker at Fleisher and beyond. Just a little bit about Miriam. She received her BA in Sociology and Studio Art from Brandeis University in 2000, and her MFA in painting with a concentration in printmaking from Massachusetts College of Art in 2003. Since moving to Philadelphia in 2004, she's exhibited at LG Tripp Gallery, Friends of the Print and Picture Collection, Art in the Airport, James Oliver Gallery, Gallery Siano, Inliquid and Painted Bride, Art in City Hall, Topstitch, Spector Gallery, and others. Miriam uses a combination of printmaking and drawing media to create her unique works on paper and designs for public art projects. Noted public art projects with the Philadelphia Mural Arts Program include Southeast by Southeast in 2013, Under the Clothespin in 2012, and Take Me to the River in 2010. Miriam's accumulated imagery becomes layered and busy with impressions of the cityscape. She's also currently a member of Space 1026. So Miriam, again, really excited to be here to see this presentation on screen printing on fabric, a class that you actually usually teach at Fleisher under normal circumstances. Now that we are in COVID restrictions, our screen print studio is limited to the amount of people that it has in it, so we unfortunately can't run in-person classes. We do have open studios available for screen printing. So if you're interested in that, you can find that on our website. So Miriam, I'm just going to give it over to you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I actually screen print on all kinds of things. I enjoy screen printing on, well, first of all, drawings, but also I screen print on parachute cloth, which is a kind of Tyvek for murals. I also in the past have screen printed on glass. Pretty much tote bags. I love printing on onesies, like baby onesies. That's usually my #1 gift to all babies. And, you know, other things as well. But I also make every year, probably about once a year, I do like 1 print edition or 2 print editions, a screen print that I will have for sale, a limited edition print. It's usually like I can only handle 1 print edition a year. It feels ambitious to me. But yeah, so for this demo, I was really excited to do something kind of like very low tech, basically so that you can do it at home with very limited supplies, and maybe with supplies that you might already have in your home or in your home studio. Now, I do want to say that I pre-recorded these demos because of a snowstorm, and I am at my studio. But and even though we do have a print shop and everything is like set up for screen printing, I use stuff that like you don't need to have. So I basically didn't use our supplies that are more photo-based. So if you, for the demos that I'm going to show you, I basically used no exposure unit, so there's no light table involved, and no hinges. So I don't know how many people have experience with screen printing, but I took those two things out of the of this process for tonight. Does anyone have questions so far? Okay. I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna bring up the supply list because I would like to talk about that first, and then kind of go through some of my demos. So I'm gonna talk over my videos that I recorded. I'm gonna share my screen.
And for those of you who want to pull up the Miriam supply list on your own computer and save it for yourselves, you can see it at the top of the chat box. It says link to supply list, so you could click on that. And I will also send everyone that link in an email following the webinar.
So basically for this demo, I also wanted to make a point. A lot of people are like, I want to try screen printing, and they buy like crazy equipment right away. I think that sometimes that's a mistake because there's a lot of process. So this demo is a great introduction to screen printing on fabric without like buying crazy supplies right away that you might not use, just to see if you like it. So that's what I would recommend. I know people that are like, go all out right away because they're excited, but instead maybe think a little bit small if you're just starting out as well. So for this demo, I'm using acetate, and I'm going to show you also with Frisket. Now I tried, you can also use contact paper. The contact paper was not sticking. It could have been cold in my studio or something, so I was using Frisket. An X-Acto knife, a Sharpie, a healing pad, and a fabric printing screen. And I would recommend a low mesh for fabric printing at home without hinges. With hinges, if you are using hinges, sometimes you can go up in mesh, but you know, and that's fine. Like at Fleisher, we would print with like higher mesh screens, like 200. So the mesh is actually really important. It's actually the amount of ink that comes out of the screen. So for printing on fabric, you want more ink to come out of the open areas. Miriam,
quick question. What is a healing pad?
Oh, good. It's like, it's basically one of those pads that have a grid. It's like a measuring pad, and then it also, you can like cut things on it.
So it's like a cutting mat? Like
yeah, it's
one
like
of
a
those
cutting, it
rubbery...
is a cutting mat. It is, yeah.
Okay.
You can also use like cardboard under your acetate too, or anything like that that won't hurt your table. I would say you do need a nice flat table for this process as well. So a kitchen table that is nice and flat works great. Non-corrugated cardboard. You do need a nice big piece of non-corrugated cardboard to fit either under your fabric. So say you're just printing on yardage or something, like you want to have it underneath the fabric, or a t-shirt, you want to slide cardboard in between the inside the t-shirt. Bow clips, sometimes I use them. So in some of my demo, you'll see that it just stretches out the fabric over the cardboard. You can use it or you cannot. I kind of did both during this demo. I would definitely recommend Speedball fabric screen printing ink. And this is actually important. Make sure it's not water soluble. There's different inks, and one says water soluble. Do not get that. Also, don't get block printing ink for this. I would recommend just sticking to fabric screen printing ink. There is a modifier you can get from Gamblin. I think it's fabric. It's like a fabric printing modifier that you can actually put in your acrylic inks to make them work, to make them textile inks. So you can try that as well, by all means. A sponge, a bowl, and a rag for cleaning up. That's just to clean up your screen. And I'm showing a cleanup method that actually we use at Fleisher, which is to try to clean up the screen as much as possible before we put it in the sink. And that actually is great for your home studios too. So you're not putting a ton of ink down the sink. You're trying to get as much of it in the garbage before you put your screen in the sink or the bathtub. For this demo, I used a cotton t-shirt, and I would recommend, you know, cotton, mostly cotton fabrics for this type of thing. I am using a little bit of alcohol just to, and you'll see it in the demo. And packaging tape, definitely need packaging tape for this process. Dish soap and a squeegee. A rounded tip is my suggestion, mostly because it kind of pushes the ink. There's more ink coming through with a rounded tip for fabric, and spatulas for ink. So, and spatulas, you could use like disposable knives or spoons and things like that as well. You will need an iron after printing to set your fabric. And I usually put like paper over the print on the fabric, and then put the iron over for like, you know, 1 minute. And I sit there with the iron over it. Does anyone have questions so far about this? Okay. So I have some links here too, and I did put links to
Sorry,
Blick.
Miriam. Sorry, there was one question.
Sure.
What kind of alcohol?
Oh, like just like rubbing alcohol, like 90. I think I found 91% alcohol, but it's just for this demo. You don't actually definitely need them, but it's just to clean off the Sharpie off the acetate. So, but I do like having it around. It's like sometimes you can find 91% alcohol, rubbing alcohol at CVS. So I did put links to Blick in here, but I'm sure you can find a lot of these also at Artists and Craftsmen. I found Frisket film at Artists and Craftsmen. I put the links into one place because it's easier. Sometimes Artists and Craftsmen doesn't have all the links from their inventory. And I do want you to definitely make sure to look up the Speedball fabric screen printing inks that's specific to this. There's other inks you can definitely try. I'm just recommending for this process. That's what I'm using tonight. And yeah, and some acetate, and then also a squeegee. And there's all kinds of squeegees you can find. I did see one for $8 at Blick that's made by Speedball for fabric printing. And I was like, wow, that's a deal too. So I think there's pretty inexpensive products out there. The screens that I'm using tonight are about $17. So I did, and they are the least expensive screens you can get. They're also, I always thought of them as the worst screens. And there's these kinds of screens that we don't actually really use at Fleisher in the classroom, but for this demo, they're the best screens because you can actually hold them with one hand and print and use the squeegee with the other. You don't need somebody to hold them for you, and you don't need to use hinges. The other great thing about these screens is that you can kind of move them all around your fabric. So when you don't have hinges, you can actually print in different areas of the fabric. So in some ways, they are the best screens. They're the worst, but they're the best. So that's why I picked those. So I am going to open up some videos right now. Okay. Oh, before I do that, I did want to show you, I did see this at Artists and Craftsmen. That's $34. And it's the Speedball fabric screens, but you can actually get like a hinge setup. This is pretty good deal for like, if you're going to like print on t-shirts and you want things to be well registered and like each print to be in the same spot on your shirt, you can actually get this, and it's a pretty good deal. So I would probably just use a clamp to put this on a table. So I like that. I mean, there's a lot of kits out there, and please, you know, if you have questions about kits, I probably could look at them and say you need that, or like that seems like a good kit or not a good kit. I would personally, if you're starting for the first time with screen printing and you just want to do a little bit at home, I wouldn't get a light bulb kit just because I think it's complicated. I would just stick to like hand stencils. That's just me though. Okay, all right, so now we're gonna open. So I did two different stencils, one on acetate and one with the Frisket. So I'm gonna start with the acetate one. So let me start my video. Okay, and I'm gonna talk over it, so let's see. Can you guys hear me right now still?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. I just turned the volume down, so I was just making sure. Okay.
Miriam, could you make your video full screen?
So I made a printout of
Miriam?
of an idea, like a building that I wanted to make into a stencil. So basically on the computer, I started this on the computer where I took hello, can everybody hear me?
Can you hear us?
Okay. Vita, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, okay. Vita, can you hear me? Sorry. Oh, you know what? Because I'm turning my volume down. Let's see. Oh, I see. Okay, cool. All right. So, so I basically on my computer, I made something kind of simple, and then I created it in a stamp filter. And then I printed it out, but I made it small because my screens are small and I wanted the actual image on my screen to be pretty small. And there's a reason that I wanted it small in my screen for this process. I think it's actually kind of hard without hinges if it's a big area on your screen. So if you have a smaller section on the screen where you have a stencil, it's actually a lot easier to have good prints. So, so this is small, this is 5 by 7. So I have a piece of acetate over the image.
Hey, Miriam, there's a question. Oh,
sure.
Good, you can hear us now, great. What is your acetate source and thickness?
Oh, good question. This, you know, I should have actually linked up the thickness. I don't remember exactly what kind of thickness it is. It's not the thinnest acetate because I tried that and it was cutting. So a slightly thicker acetate, not the, it doesn't need to be the most thick, but it shouldn't be the thinnest. So right now I'm just like drawing over my image. And the reason I'm doing that is you could cut just right over your image, but I find that like also kind of tricky with the X-Acto knife. So instead I just basically traced over and Sharpied over my marks. I like doing this kind of thing also because it simplifies the image even further. So as you go, you can kind of think, oh, I don't, you know, if I close this area up, it's just going to cut right out and it'll be nothing. I don't know how to exactly how to explain that, but you have to think about how you're going to cut it as you go. So in some ways it's fun to redraw it. And then you can see I'm adding some things as well as I'm going. So I'm thinking about how it's going to get cut too, as I go.
How do you decide what to cut?
It's a good question. So you can see here, like even as you take it off, I'm gonna like make those decisions as I cut. So if you cut, so I kind of avoided this like area here under, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but there's an area under the building. I didn't make that as detailed because I knew if I cut it out, it would just like everything would come out, or it would be just take too long to get those details for this demo. So certain things I cut out and certain things I didn't. So like you'll see, so that comes out.
So do you cut out the things that you want the ink to go into?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't realize your question. Yes. So everywhere that's getting cut is where the ink will come through. So everything black is it will be the ink coming through. The acetate's going to block on the screen. It's going to block the ink. So the acetate that is not cut blocks the ink from coming through. So that's keeps, is white. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Here's where I'm using alcohol. It's just to clean off this acetate so it doesn't confuse me on the screen. It's not necessary, but I'm just like cleaning off the Sharpie. Now, why acetate is a lot more flexible than Frisket, and it almost will, you can make, I feel like it's easier to put on the screen. So just going to show you guys right now. I'm just pausing this. I'm going to back this up a little bit. So the image, I put the image under the screen to show you this is the right way. So if there was text here instead, this would read hello. So this is the right way, the well side up, looking through to see the image. So it's the same as any other kind of screen printing. It's the positive. It's a positive. So
is it inverted?
It's not inverted, not with screen
Okay.
printing. So how you see it through it, how you see through the screen, that's how the image should come up. So I'm taking a look at it before I put the acetate on to make sure I have the right side. Does that make sense to everybody? This is just to make sure I'm putting it on the right side. So that's the right side, so I'm pointing to it. And I'm going to turn it over and like put the acetate face down. Does that make sense? So it's the right way. Now I'm going to take packaging tape and like put packaging tape all the way around it so it stays on the screen. And I do like to use the healing pad just to make sure it's that it's located in a central location. Now you can kind of tilt your acetate however you want, but if it's pretty much on the screen nice, if it's sitting on the screen well in a nice so it's registered well, it's actually easier to print when you go to print instead of it being skewed. So if you can have it looking, even on your screen, you might as well do it. So here I'm putting packaging tape around the acetate. And the idea is to acetate, there is a little space between the screen and the acetate, which is a negative with this. But the closer you can get with the packaging tape, the tighter you can get the acetate to the screen, the better. There's always going to be a little bit of air between it, and that's okay. It just makes it, that's why the Frisket in some ways is a little bit better for this, but the Frisket's harder to work with. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both of these. So, but you can keep reusing the acetate. You can keep reusing the acetate over and over again. Yeah.
Quick question for you. Could you do me a favor? Can you make the video full screen just so we can see a little bit bigger?
Sure. I think this might be, oh, I see. Here we go. Okay. Is that okay?
That's great.
I should have done it in a horizontally, but so that's on. And now, if anybody has questions about that, so it's never going to be completely tight to the screen like this Frisket or contact paper would be. So I'm going to open this one. Let me just, okay. All right. So, oh, that's not making it full screen. Haha. Let's see. Okay. So, how did I do that before?
It's the button in the middle. It's the button like, yes, you just had it. It's right next to the up file. Yes.
Oh, right here?
No. down but where the play button is.
Oh, okay.
It's on the right-hand side. It's the second button from the left.
Okay. Like that? Oh, okay. I don't think that is that. Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is Frisket, and I made a heart for Valentine's Day. I actually made a ton of different shapes for this shirt. So you're not going to see all the different shapes because I was just thinking, oh, I'll just make a ton of different shapes for this. And I would recommend maybe if you're starting this out, just think about a lot of different shapes. Now, Frisket is cool, but it's hard to work with, mostly because it can tangle up and it can bubble and things like that. Also, as far as like staying on your screen after you wash it, it is tricky. I am going to show you a way to clean out your screen so it does stay on your screen well. But the acetate's easier because in some ways, because when you take it off, you can kind of keep putting it back on your screen. So I would go with Frisket. I would think about smaller pieces that are more manageable. Like I know I've had students in the past using contact paper, and I'm saying contact paper and Frisket are similar. Frisket's a more expensive version of contact paper, where you make some very intense details that are big, and then you try to put it on your screen and it's like all messed up, so, and bubbly. So I would think about going small at first instead. So try to, get as much air bubbles as possible out. You can also cut some of the sides out. Like I'm going to show you that I'm cutting like a section of it so it sits really tight on the screen. Oh, another thing, I'm working on this side. I'm putting all the stencils on this side, not the well side, and there's a reason for that. Maybe somebody wants to answer what my reason would be. Can we do that, a question? Because I feel like.
Yeah, we can try.
Yeah. Does anyone know why I would put it on this side and not the other side?
Well, so it doesn't bleed?
So it doesn't bleed? No. Yeah, do you guys see that I cut this so that it didn't bubble? So no, actually it's so that the squeegee doesn't tear it up. If it's on the well side, because that's where you're printing, you don't want the squeegee to take up your stencils, like lift up your stencils. So it's best to do all your work, tape and everything on the other side. So I did that. And now I'm going to add some more details because I cut the middle of the heart, and you could just adhere that to the middle of this part of the stencil. Now I'm still going to put packaging tape all around it too. But yeah, you can get kind of more detailed. I mean, I didn't go insanely detailed on this, but you can definitely get very detailed with Frisket too. And you can get, there's ways to get very intricate with it. The other stuff that can do the same thing that is really fun is just regular tape, nice tape, packaging tape. There's color tape, there's waterproof tape. All that stuff also works the same way as this. So take that off. Is that on me, the sounds that I'm hearing? I don't know. All right, I am going to turn on, now we're going to go to the screen printing. This is basically screen printing them. Now I dyed my shirt. It's an extra large shirt here. And I think it's just an extra large cotton man's shirt in cotton. There's a corrugated cardboard inside it, and I used the bull clips around it. So let's see. This is the screen printing studio at Space 1026, our old screen printing table. But as you can see over here, there's hinges, but we're not using them for this. So, oh, that's not it. Okay. See? So I had this out before. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to mix some. Oh, before I did an acetate, like little bits of little shapes, and that was on acetate. So the acetate house, I did these little shapes the same way. So those little blue shapes, those were made using acetate and packaging tape on the screen. I know that's confusing because I did a couple different versions on this shirt in addition to the ones that you guys saw. This is actually a ghost print of, so the screen had ink still in it, but it printed this way too. And then this is like a more saturated print over. And these are the bow clips. The shirt is clipped over a non-corrugated cardboard. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix some ink. I generally say I didn't put any water in this ink. So I would say you don't start off without using water, and maybe if you need water, add water to it. But at first, don't think, oh, I have to use water. You can also use color straight from the cans themselves if you're questioning it. If the ink starts looking congealed a little, people definitely can use congealed ink still, but I would say if this is the first time you're doing this and somebody gave you the inks, I would try to get other ink that doesn't look congealed. It should have a yogurty consistency, a kind of nice loose yogurty consistency. So now that I mixed my inks, so I just added a blue to white, and I just want to make that clear that you don't want to add, if you want a lighter color, you don't want to add white to your dark color. You want to add the dark color to your white. I try to mix not so much ink at first, and then, because I like to actually change colors during the printing process. So like if I need to make more ink, sometimes I'll add more ink together and it will look like a slightly different color the next time I print, but I think it looks good. So I don't generally make a ton of ink. I make ink as I go. So I like these bowls, these side bowls, because it makes it a little easier to get ink out of as well, and you can mix them. And then when you're done, if you have leftover ink, you can kind of put it all together in one ink that has like other colors of ink too, to make a new ink, like a gray or something. So this is a good thing. You're seeing like the acetate that I put on the screen, I can't see it because it's clear. So I'm using my original positive to look through it to see where it would land. So this is basic. This is like it's a non-registration t-shirt printing. Fun t-shirt printing.
What's the difference between registration and non-registration? How would you?
I'm just making that up. You're still registering. I'm still registering based on the fact that I put that image there and I was like, where it was. But I guess, okay, I'm going to pause this. Registering with hinges, you have like an acetate and you know exactly where your shirt is going or your fabric's going. This is more fun registration in the fact that you're kind of like a little loose about it and you're just going for it. I like doing it that way. So yeah, registration, that's a good question. What is registration? It's like registering. So like if these forms would go on the same spot each time, that would be a registration. Oh. So in the next video, I'm going to show you, I should have filmed it, but I pre-flooded this lightly. And that's so that sometimes it like doesn't, so you're going to see how I do that, but like you lightly flood it. And actually I'm lightly flooding it here. I'm not pressing hard yet. And then I'm like pressing hard. So
why do you need to do that? Why do you need to flood an image?
so you get the ink through there, and it's in the areas that are going to have the ink coming through. So if you don't flood it, sometimes you miss. So it's like a way to, if you pre-flood it a little bit, it's a way for it to, you're not going to miss as much when you pre-flood it. So I like standing on a stool when I print. So you guys see me, I'm on a stool. I'm just not that tall, and I need to I enjoy being on stools when I print because it makes me like hunk over and actually press hard. If you have a person that wants to help you, they can also hold your screens for you, or this works. This is why these like little cute screens are really easy for printing.
So you're basically holding with one hand and
Yeah.
squeegeeing with the other.
Yeah.
And what if you feel like you need both hands to squeegee so that you can do it hard enough? Would you then need hinges?
I would say like you can get somebody to help you, like hold the screen while you use it, or use hinges. Yeah, for this. So for this.
Oh, that came out so nice.
Yeah. For this, I would say just don't, if you're not using hinges and you're using these like little screens, you don't need anybody to help you.
What size is the screen? Somebody's asking.
Oh, good question. That's a small screen. That's exactly the size screen I shared in the supply list. It's a $17 screen. So now I'm making pink. You always need magenta for pink. So I think it's a small screen because the image size that I was working with is 5 by 7. So it's a small image. So again, I'm not adding water to this. It almost like if you add too much water, I think it can run a lot too. Also, keep in mind, it's a delicate balance of not having too much ink go through your screen, especially with the acetate ones. You don't want to have too much ink come through or it will bleed a lot. So yeah, so I added magenta to white, not red. This color red, the bright red, will not make pink a nice pink. So you need magenta. So this is the heart. So I'm gonna, this is the problem with this, you can't actually see your image. But you can see it when you're actually working with it, just you can't see it in the video that well. So I'm gonna pre-flood it for you here. And see the squeegee is smaller than the actual, so that's a light flood. Now I didn't over flood it. This is a really big thing in my class. People love to paint on the flood. So keep it light, even if you miss a little, it's still okay. So, and I'm printing on Newsprint. Usually I say print on Newsprint first. So I'm showing that to you guys. That's like a heart with an arrow for Valentine's Day. This is one of my studio, it's like a combination, it's our proofing papers. It ends up being like 5 or 6 different people's artwork layered on top of each other. So I also put the newsprint over the corrugated cardboard so that, because it's good to have like a buildup when you print and to have the same buildup that you'd have with your fabric. So, okay, so from the newsprint, I see that there's like a drop of ink in the wrong place. So I put some tape over where I saw it. I'm gonna go back to it because it's kind of important. So basically I saw that the ink was coming like out in a weird spot. And I decided to like fix it. So I found where that ink was coming out of, and I put more packaging tape over it to block it.
So I guess that's really one of the reasons, and a very good reason, to do a test run on a newsprint first, huh?
Yeah. Oh, the other idea is have one piece of fabric that's your tester. It's so much fun because then you have this really cool, you end up having this amazing piece of fabric that has like all these cool proofs on it. It can sometimes be your best piece. So I would say maybe just your fabric being like the tester. So all of these shapes and stuff are all made with different tapes. I use tape stencils for those. So basically I use this waterproof tape to make a stencil on my screen. I don't have time to show you all of those, but basically waterproof tape could create stencils too, and also wax paper. So I'm laying it on. I flooded it first. Now I have my hand. Hand over. This shirt will end up being my proof shirt of like all the different cool, weird things that I make. It'll just be layers and layers. It's fun. So sometimes I just do one pull, sometimes I do two pulls based on how it looks. But yeah, so that's the heart and the arrow. And I don't see any other ink that came out from parts of the screen. Okay, so now I'm going to clean up my screen. So as promised, I just wanted to show you, this is actually what we teach at Fleisher, which is taking the ink out of the, with a card, the ink out of the screen as much as possible. And I usually put it back in a container so that I can reuse the ink. If I don't have specifically a container for pink, it will be mixed up with other colors. And I'm just getting a sponge with water to sponge out as much as possible. Now with these like stencils, you have to be really gentle if you want to keep printing with them. So especially with the Frisket one, it will come off the screen. I guess you can always tape it on, but if you want to keep it on as long as possible, you have to be really gentle. So definitely doing a lot of like wiping on the other side, the well side. And then I'm grabbing a rag to clean it more. So pretty much at this point, there's like a lot less ink that would go down the sink. In some ways, your setup at home probably is better than this setup. This setup, I'm just going to pause this. This hose is so strong, it is not good for this process. It's good for like other screen printing processes, like with the photo exposure unit. So I had to kind of keep bringing down the pressure. So if you have a low pressure sink, that's ideal for this.
Miriam, is one layer that was printed on the shirt dry before you print the next screen on it?
Yeah, it generally is. I would use it. Sometimes I use a hair dryer to like if I want to speed up that process, like if I really want to print right away. Yeah, you can use a hair dryer, but you do want it to be pretty dry first. That's each layer. So it's really low pressure because I want to keep that Frisket stencil on there.
Is there anything special that you do with the final print on fabric in terms of how you are then going to wash it? It's
oh yeah, so in the supply list, you definitely should use like if you have an iron. I would put paper over the dried fabric print. Like you could use newsprint over it, over the top of it, and then use the iron on a medium setting, not steam, and just keep it on there for like a minute to heat set it. I don't use the dryer method anymore of putting fabrics in the dryer on high. I just don't trust it personally. I like irons better. But if you only have a dryer, that's also possible. You can just put it in the dryer on high heat. Wash it, just normal washing with this kind of ink. Yeah, just normal washing after you heat set it. So these screens are great in the sense that it really, ink doesn't dry. When it does dry on there, it's pretty easy to come out. But you see, like, I cleaned it as much as possible. I did put dishwashing soap on this. I guess your final cleanup with dishwashing soap is good. But I don't generally, with these screens, worry too much about ink drying up on them. They do come out easily. Now, this stuff is hard with like not having a power washer. If things dry up, that's why it's better to use just these type of things. Power washers will take out dried ink. But if you can keep it clean, your ink won't dry. You can also, I believe, like if it does dry up, you can scrub it out with like a sponge or something too. So this is pretty much the as much cleanup of the screen as I do. I mean, most of the ink is like actually on the top layer where the Frisket is. So this is a mixture of the Frisket and packaging tape around it. I hope that's clear. So.
And if you want to reclaim the print, does the packaging tape come out pretty well?
Oh
so
yeah,
can,
packaging tape. Make sure to use expensive packaging tape, like Scotch or is it Scott or what kind of packaging tape? The like generic packaging tape at CVS. That's what I would use. Not inexpensive. There's like Uline makes packaging tape. I wouldn't use their packaging tape because it's sometimes the adhesive will stick to the screens. The nice packaging tape, the generic CVS packaging tape, that comes off really nice. So yeah, it all comes off, all this stuff.
Great.
So I am going to, that's my, let's see. Yeah, I would love any, and I actually took a couple, wait, I'm gonna share a few more things, a couple photos of other, let's see. Oh yeah, well, let me share again, sorry. Okay. So I did a couple things here. Okay. Yeah, so that's the detail. So you could put like two buildings next to each other. I sometimes will put like paper over a section so I can print next to it. So actually just plain paper when you're printing, that creates a stencil too. Anything that blocks your ink. So if you actually put scrap paper over your fabric while you're printing, that also blocks the ink from going on your fabric. So when I started this, I guess I wanted to share this picture thinking about, oh, shapes. And I just made a lot of different shapes on scrap paper. Some of the shapes I decided to work with and some I didn't. But basically, I just kind of brainstormed shapes. And I would focus, if this is your first time, I would just focus on thinking about shapes. This is, oh yeah, so that's like a picture of what you guys saw, the shirt and the screen. Oh, I also put a little water tower in here. This part didn't come out as well, but a little water tower in it. I guess so the ink kind of came through a little bit, but you can see I stopped I didn't cut out certain spots. This is with the Frisket. If you can tell, I almost like deliberately didn't cut out so I could keep a line, have a line. It's a little hard to show you, but basically I didn't continue the line or I would lose the whole image. So I broke the line up. It's a broken line. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to stop my share. Let's see. Okay, stop share. Oops. Okay.
Any recommendations that you have for designing your image to be suitable for stencil?
Yeah, I mean, so I personally have a hard time making things so simple that it's just a stencil too, in general. So I like to think about just shapes or just looking at an image and trying to simplify it as much as possible. There are some apps, I think, even on your phone to make like stamps out of your images. That would work well. The idea of a stamp. Even if you have thinking about a lino cut or something, that's pretty good for like this type of thing as well. It really depends on what images. Like I would recommend like staying clear of too complicated at first and just start with kind of like shapes and then kind of move into more details as you go. Like you could even do like if you were doing a building with many layers, you could do the first layer as just the shape and then the other layers having a little bit more detail to them.
Cool. Any other questions? What about working kind of large scale and making pattern with silkscreen on fabric? Any recommendations for that?
So if you were doing a printing table, having a printing table or something, I think with like printing on yardage, you could do that on a big table, just the way I just did it with these screens. If you're gonna I've done things where you can actually use tape, blue tape, as your to figure out where the screen keeps repeating. You'd have to actually like skip the sections where, so like you skip each section. So you print and then you skip the one next to it and then you print the next part because you don't want to print next to each print and wet print. So you let it dry. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's possible on a big table, like spreading out your fabric. You can also make a printing pad that's really great to so that you can print larger. You can also, there's different ways to create your patterns so that you make patterns so they look good as repeats as well. And there's different Photoshop apps to do that too, or Photoshop. You can do that in Photoshop.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about your class, just so we have something to look forward to in the future? The screen printing on fabric.
Oh, printing on. I mean, I don't know when we're running this again, but in the future, in person. Do you mean the in-person one?
Yes.
We're not sure.
Not sure when it's going to happen, but sometime in the future.
Yeah. I actually, so the one in person, we have a little bit more ability to do different imagery because we use hinges and an exposure unit. Although I kind of feel like maybe in the future doing this kind of thing in the beginning is kind of a fun way to see how it really works, the screens work, because with an exposure unit, it's a little bit more complicated, but everywhere that it exposes with a positive, everywhere that's black washes out, and that's the stencil. But it would be, I usually teach on, I guess, Monday nights, and it's a lot of fun. I hope we're back in person to have these classes again. The 10-week class is so much fun to print with everybody, and I usually have students that are doing all kinds of stuff. tote bags, t-shirts, yardage. But I am teaching in the spring printmaking in your kitchen again. I taught it in the fall, and so it would be awesome to see some people here in that class as well.
Tell us a little bit about that class for those who haven't taken it.
Yeah, so we're going to do printing that we can do at home, which is like creating your own gelatin plate in your kitchen. So we make it together, and then we do mono printing with the gelatin plate. We also work with lino cut and printing on plexi, like dry point, and kind of share imagery through Google Classroom as well. And it's a lot of fun. We layer all the different processes together so you can make some really interesting prints at home. And I have a show right now. Some of the people in this webinar, I did notice that are here, are in the show in my husband's store, Reload Bags. In the window, we have our class exchange from printmaking in your kitchen from in the fall. So it's like an exchange print show. It's really fun. So I have there's lino cuts and different layers of mono printing, and everybody did a great job. It's really exciting, and everything looks really good together.
Yeah, they look so beautiful. They're up on our Instagram page. We shared a little story about them. They're quite nice. What Tina was asking, what's the name of your husband's shop again?
Oh, Reload Bags. So it's at 608 North 2nd Street, and the show will be up until the end of March. And the lights, basically we have light, it's a window. So it's a nice big window, and the prints are hanging up in the window. And the lights are on at night, so you can go, if there's no specific time you need to get there to catch it. Midnight, it's still on view.
Perfect. Well, Miriam, thank you so much. That was really wonderful. I really enjoyed that. So illuminating, and seems like a really fun process. Thanks for being here tonight with us, taking your time, being so generous with that extensive and amazing supply list. I feel like I can get to it at home right away. It's great.
I hope you do. Yeah.
I have a question. I'm not sure if I got the link to the list and all the links that you put up to Dick Blick. I don't.
Oh, sure. It's the supply list is
it's in the chat box, but I'm also going to email it to everybody after.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Tonight. So
thanks.
Yeah, you would love it.
In your email.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming,
Awesome.
Kim.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. So great to see so many familiar faces, some new faces. That's great. Sign up for Miriam's class in the spring. Spring classes will be available next week online. So something to look forward to. Otherwise, stay safe, everyone. Have a great night. Enjoy the snow. There's a magical winter wonderland out there. And do come back to see more Fleisher from a Distances this coming Thursday and next week. All right. Thank you, Miriam. Have a great night. Thanks so much.
Bye.